Should the nation's capital have legalized gambling? A commission set up to examine the issue says yes, but some people say no. They're afraid of what it'll do to the city and its people. Still, gambling is becoming more and more respectable as more states legalize it in various forms. I'm Jim Hertz, and on NewsCenter Forum this Saturday night, we'll be taking a look at the issue. Join me and Jim Vance on NewsCenter Forum Saturday night at 7:30 on Channel 4.
Hi, this is Tom Kennedy inviting you to tune in this week's $100,000 Name That Tune as our two contestants meet head-on for the opportunity to name a single mystery tune worth $100,000. $10,000 a year for the next 10 years. Now that's worth watching, and you can see it all right here where your dial is set.
Will someone win the Golden Medley and a chance at the $100,000 tune? Find out Monday night at 7:30 on Channel 4. Join host Peter Marshall and your favorite celebrities for Hollywood Squares every Tuesday and Friday night at 7:30 on Channel 4.
This is Elizabeth Taylor Warner inviting you to join me at the Wolf Trap Gala benefit opening Wednesday, May 31st at 8:30 p.m.
And Sawyer for NewsCenter 4 tonight at 11.
For years, gambling was considered a seamy activity. Though it was attractive to many, it still suggested something criminal. Today, though, gambling is quite respectable. So respectable that some states are running gambling games, numbers games. Millions play state lotteries. Bingo is church fair. Casino wheels spin on. Those who play put their money down willingly, hoping for that big payoff. But others say legalizing the games will end up costing us all more than money.
Kevin Field, court is 9.
Good evening, I'm Jim Vance. More and more states are legalizing various forms of gambling, and there's a move in the District of Columbia to join those states. This report by the D.C. Gambling Commission recommends legalized gambling in the district and the establishment of a D.C. lottery. It's an idea that excites some lawmakers. It promises to bring in lots of money to spend on projects that might otherwise go unfunded. The D.C. Gambling Commission says a D.C. businessman could make $25,000 a year selling lottery tickets. And it says the penny-pinched D.C. government could rake in $27 million a year. Supporters of legalized gambling say people are going to gamble anyway. They say it's better that money go to the government rather than to the bookies. In fact, we're told letting the government into the act takes business away from the mobsters who run the illegal games. The Justice Department says no proof, there is no proof, that is, that legal games cut in on organized crime's profit margin. Bookies have an advantage. They offer easy credit and winnings that can more easily escape the eyes of the IRS. The National Gambling Commission in a 1976 report said 80% of Americans think gambling is okay, and that 2/3 of the population bet on something or other, lotteries, football pools, or at the racetrack. And the D.C. Gambling Commission says 80% of the district's population wants legalized gambling. Today, 14 states have lotteries. New Hampshire was the first to set one up 15 years ago. Maryland jumped into the gambling game in 1973. Promising to make a lot of people happy. The first instant millionaire was a donut maker, and the drawing of that lucky ticket got a lot of publicity. But opponents of legalized gambling say the winners get the coverage and the losers are forgotten. And opponents argue that many of those who bet are poor people who should be spending their money on food instead of placing bets in hopes of a big win that will lift them out of poverty. The Maryland lottery took in $234 million last year, and the state got $90 million of that. Maryland lottery sells an average of $900,000 worth of tickets on its daily game every day. Many of those who buy are from the district. And how are those dollars spent? But about 40 cents goes to the state. 45 cents is paid out in prize money, and the remaining 15 cents goes for administrative costs. Maryland's daily numbers game allows players to pick a 3-digit number every day. That game is very similar to the illegal numbers game, which has flourished for years in urban ghettos. Of course, serious gamblers in Washington or elsewhere can always go to Las Vegas. On an average day there, 200,000 tourists are pumping the slot machines, putting up their chips, picking lucky numbers. Very few hit the jackpot, but the state of Nevada wins every year. It gets $500 million in revenue. And as a result, Nevada citizens don't pay a state income tax. Atlantic City, New Jersey is hoping to duplicate the Las Vegas success story. In about a week, the first of what planners hope will be 20 to 30 legal gambling casinos will open in Atlantic City, tempting the 40% of the U.S. population that lives within driving distance. Atlantic City hopes to cure its urban ills with the soothing rustle of bettors' dollars. New York has a lottery and off-track betting. Off-track betting was intended to provide a revenue windfall for New York, but its contribution has been considerably less than expected. And studies show it's had little impact on illegal bookmaking. In fact, a University of Michigan study indicates that off-track betting created 90,000 new customers for the bookies. What would legalized gambling do to Washington, D.C.? Well, Jim Hertz will be along in a minute with two guests who have some thoughts on that as NewsCenter Forum continues.
You mean to Memco? You know, I saved a lot more than that $1 membership fee on my first visit. I save on everything. Fresh produce, all the name brands, fish, poultry, beef, so good it's guaranteed. In fact, Memco prices are so low I can afford to buy Miles' special treats. Here, Miles.
You belong at Memco.
Hey, everybody, I'm Mac McGarry, and Sunday morning, May 21st at 11. Teams from Largo in Prince George's County, Maryland, Ireton in Alexandria, Virginia, and Roosevelt at 13th and Upshur Northwest are meeting a playoff on its academics. Here on Channel 4. Hello out there. Hello.
We've invited to be with us here this evening two men who have been actively involved in this issue of whether or not we ought to have gambling in D.C. First, the Reverend Andrew Fowler, who is Executive Secretary of the Committee of 100 Ministers. He also is minister of Capitol View Baptist Church. He is actively opposing the issue. And also we have Wesley Long, who was chairman of the Economic Committee of the D.C. Gambling Commission, the commission that recently recommended to the City Council that certain forms of gambling be legalized in the District of Columbia. Mr. Long, let me ask you first. In part of your report, you said that the district could expect to realize from a lottery anywhere from $16 to $37 million a year. In the figures that I've seen on states that have legalized lotteries, even the large states have failed to realize that much in some cases. For example, New Jersey got out of its only about $50 million, as I understand it. What makes you think we can get that much money in the first place?
Well, for the district, the recommendation is for a higher payoff than any of the existing lotteries, a 60% payout. Maryland, with a 50% payout, realized something like over $50 million in its first year, full year of operation. I think the district with a higher payout will probably generate more interest and may actually get some Maryland business across the line to counteract what's happening now with the district losing revenue.
Reverend Fowler, let me ask you this. You are the group that you're with is actively trying to keep this issue off the ballot in November. That seems to me in a way sort of undemocratic and unchristian-like. How do you justify that position in not letting the people themselves in D.C. make their own decision?
The committee has not voted to keep it off the ballot. What the committee hopes is that the commission and the city council will tell the people the truth about legalized gambling in the states. As for instance, 2 or 3 mistakes have been made in the council's report. For instance, a report got out that most of the people who submitted testimony were in favor of legalized gambling. That was an error. Should have been made clear that the people who generally favored legalized gambling either wanted an instrument set up of that kind, or they had some kind of business that they're hoping to profit by. And then another mistake that should be clarified immediately is that the chairman pointed out that the police had suggested that it would make no change in the manpower that they would need. The police didn't even testify on it at all. What the chief did say was that he could not even estimate how much expense would be added until he knew what kind of instrument was going to be established in gambling. Another thing that should be righted before we go any further is that the newspapers headlined 80% of the people in Washington wanted legalized gambling. But when the chairman was questioned on the day of the reporting, he said that of himself, I'm the only one that's saying that. But the newspapers didn't carry that, so that the people in Washington think now that somebody has pooled 80% of the people in Washington, and they said they want to legalize gambling.
I think some surveys have been taken
Yeah,
that indicated
but they
large...
think 80% of the people.
Well, wasn't that what was in the surveys?
See, but Harry Truman warned us, don't pay polls any attention. You see, if you didn't poll 80%, then you can't say they're 80%. So these are 3 things that the public needs to know, that newspaper was simply reporting against.
Well, wouldn't it be a nice way to find out whether people wanted to know, let them vote on it?
Well, we have not even taken an issue on that. We haven't even come to that. We're only interested in having the people told the truth about legalized gambling. We want them to know
so
what the truth is.
So you don't object to having it on the ballot?
The only thing we're fighting now is tell the people the truth. Let them know that every state that has legalized gambling, tell them that every state, tell them the truth. It's in the records. I got the reports all here written by the government that Arizona, Nevada, California, Florida, Michigan, Massachusetts, and Oregon, Colorado, everyone, the 14 states with the big stuff and the others, every one of them has to pay more for criminal justice than the states that don't have it. Crime rate goes up in all of those states. The welfare rolls increase. I got the figures here. So the people need to be told this truth. They need to understand that, for instance, in Connecticut, where they had this 3%, let them know that that's just 30 cents on $100, where Maryland, year before last, had $50 on the 100. The people misunderstand. Somebody talking about all this money for welfare, all this money for education. Well, the records show that no state up till now has gotten this money. No money for education. And somebody was talking about all the money in New Jersey for old folks. Only 40 cents a week, the last time I read. And now that casinos are coming, just to show you what gambling does, according to the reports, Atlantic City borrowed $200,000 from LEA to almost double that force. So that gives you some idea of the expense.
I'd like to come back and ask Mr. Long his reply to some of these charges in just a moment when NewsCenter Forum continues.
Young Julia Walsh found a summer job as a camp counselor in the mountains of North Carolina.
Young people need the work experience. It's an important part of their education, and it's important to the community. That's why I joined the task force.
Summer Jobs for Youth is an area-wide program sponsored by the Metropolitan Washington Board of Trade, the National Alliance of Businessmen, and 7 local chambers of commerce.
When the task force calls, tell them what Julia Walsh told them.
I found a summer job for someone.
Summer Jobs for Youth. Jack Pardee, Chairman.
Jim Vance, Jim Hertz, Nick Charles, Willard, followed by the NBC Nightly News with David Brinkley and John Chanson. All part of the 90-minute day, 5:30 to 7 weeknights on Channel 4. Leopards are not what you would consider outgoing animals. In fact, they're not only difficult to observe, but almost impossible to find. Travel to the Kalahari Desert for a rare glimpse of this spotted ghost in its natural surroundings. Wednesday night at 7:30 on Channel 4's Wild Kingdom.
If you're a woman with high blood pressure, here are good reasons to stay on your medication.
Do it for her. Do it for him. Do it for your loving man. If you won't do it for yourself, do it for all the loved ones in your life.
Stay on your daily medication if you're a woman with high blood pressure. If not for yourself, for them.
Do it for all the loved ones in your life.
Mr. Long, you were chairman of the Economic Committee of the D.C. Gambling Commission. How do you respond to things that Reverend Fowler has said, that in states where they've had legalized gambling, the money really isn't that much, that it increases crime problems, increases welfare problems, and so on? You made a rather detailed study of all this.
Well, Maryland's first full year of operation, the state treasury realized $59 million from just the daily numbers alone. That's real money. Our range of estimates for the districts are anywhere, as you said, 16 to 37 million. My estimate is probably 27 million from daily numbers. Right now, I estimate anywhere from $3 to $15 million of that 59 million was D.C. money, people going across the line. I think this is an important economic issue for the district.
The money would stay here now.
The money would stay here because the payoff would be higher than in Maryland.
How about the charges that legalized gambling increases welfare problems, increases police problems, and so on?
I looked into the crime rates for various states, and there's only one state in the industrialized Northeast that does not have any legal gambling. That's the state of Illinois. No, Indiana, pardon me. Indianapolis, the capital city, had a crime rate increase from 73 through 75 of about 78%. At the same time as Maryland had a crime increase with the existence of the lottery of about 18%. So I couldn't find any correlation between the existence of legalized gambling and crime rates. Seemed to be no relation.
The projections, again, on the money, very rosy projections of what D.C. might realize. But at the same time, if my memory serves me correct, a lottery in Delaware recently failed because it wasn't competitive with Pennsylvania and Maryland and other surrounding states. Is there a possibility that if they voted it here in D.C. that it could go right down the tubes the way Delaware did after a couple of months?
I don't think so, no. As I said, with the payoff higher than in Maryland, and in fact in any other state where the standard payoff is 50%, we would be competitive. In fact, we'd have an edge on the other state activity.
Reverend Fowler, how do you respond to the feeling that a lot of D.C. money, people are going to gamble, that a lot of D.C. money now is going to Maryland, that businesses that are near the border are suffering, for example, liquor stores and people who sell the lottery tickets, people who are going across into Maryland?
I'm sure that a lot of people are going across into Maryland, and a lot of Maryland people are coming over into Washington. But
they're not coming over here to buy lottery tickets.
There may be. I know some of them are. But where our commission made its big blunder, they just keep talking about what's taken in, which is not the issue at all. Mm-hmm. The issue is how much extra money gambling is causing the states to spend. Take, for instance, Maryland. When they got legalized gambling down there, the juvenile rate in Anne Arundel County alone jumped 103%. And for the whole state, from 30 to 48 cents. It got so bad that Senator McMathias had to call a meeting in Annapolis, and hold conference there with outstanding men like Eisenhower and the men in charge there. And the government had to furnish money to bail them out on that issue. They say nothing about all of the other expenses that came up in Maryland. And look at the corruption that is caused in high places. Every state, Mr. Long just mentioned Indiana, and I just pointed out that Indiana had a lower crime rate than any of the states with legalized gambling. I have the records, not only in my hand, but books on.
Indianapolis had a higher rate.
Indiana, that's where Indianapolis is located.
Yes.
Indiana had a lower rate of crime.
Now,
Any other state.
Mr. Long was saying Indianapolis had a much higher rate.
Yeah, but Mr. Long didn't tell you what's east and west and north and south of Indianapolis by itself. He didn't tell you any of that. You see, when you start talking about Indianapolis itself, take it out of its state. You see, when we talk about Washington, this is our state. And when you start, you can't take Indianapolis out of Indiana. You just keep it in there. See, our commission made a big blunder. I'm sorry. They should have told us what the negatives are. They have the people thinking that this is all rose, that if we get him $20 million, that we keep it. Not so. The gambling will ruin all of our expenses. The police department itself could go up as much as $7 million. Welfare rolls will have to go up as much as $7 million. Juvenile links with arson. There'll be more fires in the District of Columbia because of it, if we get it. There'll be more bankruptcies, more people not working.
It's an awful thing. How do you respond to it?
I have the figures from the government books.
The police did testify at hearings before my committee that they expected no change in police costs as a result of legalizing gambling. Some people others that testified before the committee said they expected the police costs to go down. Rev Fowler, who testified, said he expected the police costs to go up, but the police themselves said no change.
May I say the chief of police said they did not testify. And the word "the," I think, is misleading. A policeman might have testified, 2 policemen, some policemen. But the chief says that the department did not testify before the hearing, and he has not changed his position, and that the figures that
somebody must have testified.
Lieutenant Newville
Well, now, see, that's different. But the chief says that nobody questioned him. He was not interviewed by anybody. And that the Q&A column, which said the same thing was said down the other day, so far as he knows, doesn't even refer to his department at all.
Lieutenant Newville is the head of the gambling branch of the police force, and so we went to the person who should know.
I think we should not say the police.
I'm not sure that we're going to resolve this right here. We're going to break again for another message. We'll be right back.
Don't say the police. Yeah.
I'm Shirley Harrington. My daughter Renee was born paralyzed from the waist down. No one knew if she'd ever be able to walk, but thanks to a program of the Centers for the Handicapped, Renee has made remarkable progress. Through therapy, she has advanced to a walker and has now learned to walk with crutches. For Renee and me, this is a small miracle, yet it is a part of the everyday work of the Centers for the Handicapped. In addition to its children's program, the agency operates a sheltered workshop where handicapped adults learn vocational skills and work for wages. An activity center helps individuals with mental and physical handicaps reach their full potential. Through intensive therapy and training, severely handicapped persons learn to perform tasks essential to human needs. Everyday children and adults are being helped in many ways by the Centers for the Handicapped.
Hi, I'm Gwen Thompson. Sunday night at 6 on Hurrah, we're going to be hearing the story of one father's struggle over custody of his 4.5-year-old daughter. Reuben W. Moore is a Washington businessman who wants more than just occasional visits with his daughter, and his attorney, Van Hall, is finding that more than half his clients are men seeking more equal justice in divorce and custody settlements. Hear their story with me Sunday night at 6 on Hurrah, right here on Channel 4.
A Washington classroom of kids with severe learning disabilities is taught horseback riding in an effort to give them confidence. Follow one of them on A Horse for Larnell, all this week at 5:30 on NewsCenter 4.
Reverend Fowler, is the committee of 100 ministers against legalized gambling in D.C. on moral grounds strictly?
First of all, moral grounds, because the Bible says, he that setteth up a table of fortune shall be put to the sword. And that's the first ground on which to do it.
What do you think we ought to do then about the bingo games that are run in a lot of churches in D.C.?
Any gambling. We're opposed to any gambling. And the law now is that anybody who gambles shall be arrested. So we think anybody who gambles should be arrested.
Including people who play bingo in churches?
Anybody, wherever they are.
What are the chances, Mr. Long, of the Congress approving this? It's not as if legalized gambling is right around the corner in D.C., is it? Is it?
Under the present situation, it was the opinion of the Legal and Law Enforcement Committee that the City Council could legalize a lottery run by and for the district government. Not a person, however, because the criminal code cannot be changed until 1979 by the City Council.
So you don't think it would have to have congressional approval at all?
Only the usual congressional approval that's for any particular law. And I don't know of any particular opposition on the Hill.
So what can we look forward to? Will it be on the, if Reverend Fowler is telling us here tonight that they're not going to oppose putting it on the ballot in November, will it be on the ballot referendum this November?
That's up to the City Council, and of course I don't read the minds of 13 people.
That would be your recommendation, though, to go ahead and do it.
Yeah, the commission recommended that it be put on the ballot as an advisory referendum.
And you say you will not oppose that?
No, I didn't. I said we have not come to that yet. We have not worked on that part yet. The only thing we're doing now is trying to get the commission to tell the people the truth. Tell them both sides. Let them know that you will get in some money, but you'll also increase the expenses in other areas. That's where we are now.
What will be your position a little bit later on? As I understand it, the people in Virginia are voting on the possibility of pari-mutuel betting there, which would really put the squeeze, wouldn't it, on the D.C. residents who really want...
There are people who drink liquor in my block, but I don't want it in my house. So that whatever anybody else does, I would still fight it in Washington on both moral grounds and economic grounds.
You would never agree that this would be a matter of individual choice?
Oh, everything's a matter of individual choice. That's the reason I think the people who have education and the people who live in good houses ought to tell other people the truth. And then let them know that this will cost them more than they get out of it, you see. Then let them make up their minds. Let's don't paint a rosy picture that all you get is what's there. Tell them that it will more, the expenses will go up more on everything else than you're going to get out of legalized gambling. Tell them that.
Mr. Long, there have been charges also that if gambling is legalized here, that you'll end up with two forms of gambling. One, the legalized numbers, and two, the illegal numbers and illegal form of gambling, because it's sometimes easier to bet with a bookie and so on. This is not really going to wipe out illegal gambling if it happens here, is it?
No, I don't expect it to wipe it out. I expect some incursions because, again, the payoff on the district lottery would be higher than the illegal payoff.
Wesley Long, Chairman of the Economic Committee of the D.C. Gambling Commission, thank you for being with us, and Reverend Andrew Fowler, Executive Secretary, Committee of 100 Ministers. Thank you. The debate over legalizing gambling in Washington is likely to go on for a while. Jim Vance has discovered gambling was legal in D.C. at one time, and he has something to tell us about that.
One other point. Not only was there at one time legalized gambling in the nation's capital, but ladies and gentlemen of this federal city at one time used to lay $1 or $2 on the horses. There used to be a racetrack right here in Lafayette Park across the street from the White House. That was 1797. Also, legalized lotteries used to be quite popular here in Washington. That all came to an end, however, in 1820 when the city was trying to raise money with a lottery to build a new city hall over in Judiciary Square. Problem is, the guy running the thing took the money and split. First prize was an incredible $100,000. The guy who was supposed to win sued the city, lost in the lower court, hired Daniel Webster, went to the Supreme Court, and won. The city had to pay fines and judgments totaling $198,000, and as you might expect, that was the end of lotteries in the district. Congress passed a bill in 1842 banning them. For Jim Hartz, I'm Jim Vance. Thanks for joining us. See you again next week.
NewsCenter Forum is a production of NewsCenter 4, which is solely responsible for its content.
At Simms, you'll never see this word, because Simms represents, at off price, over 200 world-famous brand names in ladies' and men's clothing. At all times, you can buy men's current, nationally advertised $175 suits with the label for $98, $20 designer shirts for $9.99. There's never a reason for a sale. At Simms, an educated consumer is our best customer.
Hi, OJ here. Did you know you could buy a great-looking used car like this from Hertz? That's right. Hertz selects and sells only the finer cars from its rental fleet, and everyone comes with a record of service and maintenance and a limited warranty covering the engine, transmission, drive shaft, and differential. Now, how's that for a warranty?
Ask for full details on the warranty when you check the great-looking cars and the values at any of these Hertz car sales locations.
Let's face it, you could cook your burger, add the cheese, pickles, onions. It still wouldn't taste like the one from your favorite hamburger place. Until now. Introducing Hellmanns Big H sauce. It turns your kitchen into the best hamburger place in town. New Hellmanns Big H sauce is everything you love on burgers, but never had in a home sauce before. Try it, America.
Your very own kitchen will turn into your favorite hamburger place, it's true.